Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. And Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajakacharya Ashtotar Tadashi Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajakacharya Ashtotar Tadashi Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Kantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay, so I don't think we have a verse on the board. But we're going to read text 8 again. Because if I read text 9, then I have to read through 25. And as Dharma Seder already knows that, and he's already preparing for tomorrow's class. So we'll read text 8 again. Ever fresh. And this is, okay. Narayana Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Deving Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiriyet. Before reciting this Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the Goddess of Learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashta prajesha badreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavatyuttama shloke bhaktim bhavati naistiki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil. And loving devotion to the Supreme Lord, who is glorified in transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 26th day of May, 2025 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are reading from Canto 8, Withdrawal of the Cosmic Creations, Chapter 11, King Indra Annihilates the Demons. Text number 8. Yeah. All right, I just want to make sure that at least two of you have your device ready. GK, you got it yet?
We're turning to chapter 8.
What did I say? No, chapter 11, text 8. Canto 8, chapter 11, text 8.
Okay.
All right, here we go. All right, I'm going to try it. Tadidam kala rashanam jagat pashyanti suryayaha narishyandi nashochanti tattva-yuyamapanditaha. Tadidam kala rashanam jagat pashyanti suryayaha narisyanti nashochanti tattva-yuyamapanditaha. Tadidam kala rashanam jagat pashyanti suryayaha narisyanti nashochanti tattva-yuyamapanditaha. Tadidam kala rashanam jagat pashyanti suryayaha narisyanti nashochanti tattva-yuyamapanditaha. Tadidam kala rashanam jagat pashyanti suryayaha narisyanti nashochanti tattva-yuyamapanditaha. Anyone else?
Tadidam kala rashanam
Tadidam kala rashanam
jagat pashyanti suraya
jagat pashyanti suryayaha
nahirshyanti nashochanti
narisyanti nashochanti
tatrayuyamapandita.
tattva-yuyamapandita. Prabhu, you have it on your phone there? You want to try it? There's no one else in the room anyway. Go ahead. Tadidam kala rashanam jagat pashyanti suryayaha narisyanti nashochanti tattva-yuyamapanditaha. Anyone else online?
We have Vijay Prabhu online.
Vijay, go.
Tadidam kala rashanam
Tadidam kala rashanam
jagat pashyanti surayaha
jagat pashyanti suryayaha
narisyanti nachochanti
narisyanti nashochanti
tatrayuyam apanditaha.
Tattayuyam apandita. You want to try it? I guess not.
Tadidam kala rashanam
Tadidam kala rashanam
jagat pashanti suraya
jagat pashyanti surayaha
narishanti na sochanti
narishyanti na shochanti
tatra iyam apandita.
tattayuyam apanditaha. Probably not. Okay. Tat, therefore, idam, this whole material world, kala rashanam, is moving because of eternal time. I'm sorry, is moving because of time eternal. Jagat, moving forward, this whole universe. Pashyanti, observe. Suryaha, those who are intelligent by admission of the truth. Na, not. Rishyanti, become jubilant. Na, nor. Shochanti, lament. Tatra, in such. Yuyam, all of you demigods. Apanditaha, not very learned, having forgotten that you are working under eternal time. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Seeing the movements of time, so he's speaking, Bali speaking to Indra. Seeing the movements of time, those who are cognizant of the real truth neither rejoice nor lament for different circumstances. Therefore, because you are jubilant due to your victory, you should be considered not very learned. Purport. Bali Maharaj knew that Indra, king of heaven, was extremely powerful, certainly more powerful than he himself. Nonetheless, Bali Maharaj challenged Indra by saying that Indra was not a very learned person. In the Bhagavad Gita 2.11, Krishna rebuked Arjuna by saying, Ashochan and Vashotastvam pragyabharangsha bhashase katasu nagatasuncha nanu shochanti panditaha. While speaking learned words, you are mourning for what is not worthy of grief. Those who are wise lament neither for the living nor the dead. Close quote. Thus, as Krishna challenged Arjuna by saying that he was not a pundit or a learned person, Bali Maharaj also challenged King Indra and his associates. In this material world, everything happens under the influence of time. Consequently, for a learned person who sees how things are taking place, there is no question of being sorry or happy because of the waves of material nature. After all, since we are being carried away by these waves, what is the meaning of being jubilant or morose? One who is fully conversant with the laws of nature is never jubilant or morose because of nature's activities. In the Bhagavad Gita 2.14, Krishna advises that one be tolerant. Tang tatikshvasva bharata. Following this advice of Krishna's, one should not be morose or unhappy because of circumstantial changes. This is the symptom of a devotee. A devotee carries out his duty in Krishna consciousness and is never unhappy in awkward circumstances. He has full faith that in such circumstances, Krishna protects his devotee. Therefore, a devotee never deviates from his prescribed duty of devotional service. The material qualities of jubilation and moroseness are present even in the demigods, who are very highly situated in the upper planetary system. Therefore, when one is undisturbed by the so-called favorable and unfavorable circumstances of this material world, he should be understood to be Brahma-bhuta, or self-realized. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 1854, Brahma-bhuta pasannatma nashochati nakankshati. One who is transcendentally situated at once realizes the Supreme Brahman and becomes fully joyful. Close quote. When one is undisturbed by material circumstances, he should be understood to be on the transcendental stage, above the reactions of the three modes of material nature. Om jnana timirandasya jnanandana shalakya chakshur unmidatam mena tasmai shri gurave namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and to all members of Sri Parampara, the disciplic succession. So very interesting. Here you have the demon, Bali, who's actually a devotee, and you have the devotee, Indra, who is not really understanding some of the first principles of transcendental knowledge, which was that there's no point in being jubilant or morose over material affairs, because they come and go by the force of time. And if you recall, in the beginning of the Bhagavatam, first canto, chapter 5, text 18, this is Narada Muni's instruction to to Vyasadeva, to write the Bhagavatam. You remember, Vyasadeva had written all the Puranas and the Vedas and the Upanishads and everything, and still he was unsatisfied. He was troubled, and he didn't know exactly why. So Narada Muni came to him and explained that because you haven't written anything that's wholly and solely dealing with the Supreme Personality of Godhead in devotional service and the devotees. He'd written other books that had so much bhakti in them. After all, he'd written Mahabharata, in which the Bhagavad Gita is there, and in Padma Purana, there's quite a few things about bhakti, obviously. Gopal Tapani Upanishad, even Ishopanishad, but not wholly and solely. At the beginning where it says Dharma Projitakai Devotra, where they were kicking out all cheating dharmas and dealing only with pure devotional service. So then we encounter this verse. Prabhupada would often quote it. It's 1.5.18, and Narada speaking to Vyasa. Tasyaiva heto prayateta kovido nalabhyate yad brahmatama paryadaha. Talabhyate dukkha padannitak sukham kalena sarvata gabhira rangasa. This is exactly the philosophy that Bali Maharaj is speaking under the auspices and of this philosophy. So here he's saying that, this isn't the one I'm looking for. It's the next one. Yeah, tasai beheto prayate kovida. So Prabhupada says in the translation, persons who are actually intelligent and philosophically inclined should endeavor only for that purposeful end, which is not obtainable even by wandering from the topmost planet, Brahmaloka, down to the lowest planet, Patala, in this material world. As far as happiness derived from sense enjoyment is concerned, it can be attained automatically in course of time, just as in course of time we obtain miseries even though we do not desire them. Now this principle is also enunciated by Prahlad Maharaj in his teachings to his friends. And if you understand this and you have faith in this principle, you understand that due to your karma in previous life, you have a certain amount of happiness and unhappiness programmed in already. You really can't change it, but everyone is striving to increase their happiness and their wealth and all these things, and trying to avoid any negative things. But those are already programmed in, and you're wasting your time. The point is that what should you strive for in this life? That's what prayateta means. Yati means to strive, and prayateta means to really strive hard. Those who are wise, they strive for that which is not available from Brahmaloka down to Patala Loka. In other words, nowhere in this material world can you really find bhakti. Of course, you can find bhakti yoga, but the point is that it's in coming from the spiritual world. And when bhakti is really being engaged in, and you have it's really the spiritual world. Prabhupada made that point. The devotees are all chanting and serving and nicely. Then this becomes an emissary of the spiritual world. So this is what Vyasadeva hasn't really described fully yet. And of course the Bhagavatam is the ripened fruit of the Vedic literature, and it deals wholly and solely, ultimately. You may find parts of it that doesn't seem to, but actually ultimately they do, dealing with this pure devotional service. So you have a very interesting situation back on our battlefield here, of the demigods and the demons. And Bali is chastising Indra because he's very jubilant, having conquered the demons, you see. But Bali is actually a great devotee. He's a Mahajan. He's a grandson of Prahlad. And so all of them are exalted, and especially Bali, and they're all protected by Prahlad's wonderful devotion. In other words, so many generations backwards and forwards will be delivered. And this Bali, although he's born in the in the family of Hiranyakashipu, and he's on the side of the demons, ultimately he surrenders completely unto Vishnu in the form of Vamanadev. This is I think, the next pastime. So that's the principle here. And the important lesson, the all-important lesson for us is that we have a certain amount of intellectual, mental, physical energy that is given to us in this lifetime. What are we going to strive for in this lifetime? If we're not guided by this philosophy, we'll naturally strive for some sensual, to maximize the sensual pleasures, or just to survive. If we can survive, then that's the success. Not really. The animals are doing the same thing. But this is what the Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam are all about, that we should strive for, preliminarily, liberation from this round of birth, old age, disease, and death. That these four things, plus the threefold miseries, which can happen at any time, they obviate, they negate the logic or the the intelligence of striving for anything material. Because it's all temporary. It's all temporary. And then we come back to my favorite verse. Practically every class the verse is pertinent. 5:22 in the Bhagavad Gita. Yehi sangsparjita bhoga dukkhayo evite adyandamanta konteya nateshu ramate Buddha. Those who are intelligent, Buddha, they do not participate in the pleasures that are due to the senses contacting their sense objects. O son of Kunti, this is Krishna speaking. Such pleasures are the sources of all misery, and they have a beginning and an end, and so the wise do not delight in them. This is the 5th chapter. So that's a basic principle of Krishna consciousness. Because if you have no experience, even just indirectly by seeing someone, a pure devotee, who is equipoised in happiness and distress, but is always on that platform of inner happiness and sometimes outer happiness because he's contacting Krishna, then you have to fall back into the material pool of trying to avoid material miseries and lamenting when you get something and lose it, just like it describes here in the 54th verse of the 18th chapter. So it's not easy to come to that point. You can't do it artificially. You have to have the contact of the pure devotee, and you have to be also be practicing in order to even experience some of that. How even in the most difficult situation, you can be equipoised, and you can say, okay, this is Krishna's desire. I still want to perform devotional service. Let me chant Hare Krishna and pray that I can continue like that. And so it's a completely different mindset. And it's really the only reasonable mindset, seeing as how everything is going to come to an end. It's really absurd to strive for material happiness and wealth and all of these positions, because it's temporary. It's all going to be destroyed by time, you see. And this is like lesson number 1 in spiritual life in the Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna was lamenting for what is not lamentable, which is the fate of this material body. Everyone's going to die. What's the most amazing thing? Who remembers? Yudhishthira was asked when he went out into the forest looking for water, and his father Yamaraj there was a nice lake out there, but all the other Bhima came, and he wouldn't. He said, "Well, you can't drink it. It belongs to me. You have to answer these questions." The disembodied voice. Bhima says, "What are you? Who are you?" And he immediately fell over. There was something in the water, right? And Arjuna also, and then Yudhishthira. Yudhishthira then came third, and but he was very dharmic. He said, "Oh, it's not my pool. Okay, I won't drink it. I have to answer it." He was actually answering. He didn't know it was his father asking the questions. So one of the questions is, "What's the most amazing thing?" What is it? Ramapati, how's the verse start? Do you remember that? Day by day, everyone is being dragged off to you. Ayu, hadidivai pungsam, udyanastan yashannaso. No, that's a different verse. Yeah, that's the one. The sun is taking away the day by day. But this is like, what's the most amazing thing? How is it? Kimascharya, yeah, that's the punchline. Yeah. Anyway, the meaning is, day by day, everyone is being, millions of human beings are being dragged off by their souls to stand before Yamaraj and be punished. But those who are left are thinking, oh, this won't happen to me. That my father died, my grandfather died, my unfortunate friend died in a car accident, but I'm not going to die. I'm going on forever. You may obviously, if you think about it rationally, say, of course I'm going to die. But you don't act that way. You act as if you're going to live forever. In other words, you're not thinking about the fate of the eternal soul. You're only thinking about the relative fate of this body. But the body is doomed. So it's absurd to just be absorbed in that, trying to increase the comforts and pleasures of this body. So the answer to that is, one should strive for what you haven't attained from going up and down, from Brahma Loka down to Patala Loka. And that's in Lord Chaitanya's famous verse also, in Rupa Goswami, about who is the real fortunate soul. Brahmande Brahmante Kon Bhagyavan Jeev Guru Krishna Prasade Pai Bhakti Lata Bij. That everyone is going up and down the species. Brahmande Brahmante Kon, in this Brahmanda, Brahma's egg, Brahma's universe, Brahmanda Brahmante Kon. Bhagyavan Jeev, the fortunate soul, by the mercy of Guru and Krishna. Prabhupada makes a point in one lecture where he's talking about that Guru is always first. By the mercy of Guru and Krishna, one gets the seed of the creeper of bhakti planted in his heart. Now then, as that section goes on in the Madhya Lila, he's speaking to Rupa Goswami, I think chapter 15, Prabhupada explains carefully what is that seed. That seed is faith in bhakti, that seed is a taste for the holy name, that seed is the faith in the spiritual master. All those are the seed which you have to water by hearing and chanting and also practicing. And that watering process causes that creeper to grow, and eventually it fructifies. It says it pierces the covering of the universe and goes up to the spiritual world and takes shelter of Lord Krishna's lotus feet, and there's the eternal fruit of love of God that you can taste. That's what makes sense when you think about how absurd it is to strive for material things and to lament when you don't achieve or you lose them and all of these different things. It's just a force of time. That's just what material life is all about. But in the human form of life, we have the chance, because of the superior intelligence, to understand these things and not to be degraded by the bodily concept of life. So Indra is, Bali is chastising Indra because he's morose, having lost the battle, and eventually I think he is going to conquer the demons, and then we're going to have the whole appearance of Vamana to get the home planets of the demigods back. So that's what's going on here. And let's see. Now this verse is of course seminal in the Bhagavad Gita. Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma Nashochati Nakanchati. I remember when I read this verse, and then I had remembered the verse in at the end of the 14th chapter. God, my verses are going. What is it? The one about how does one transcend the modes of nature? No. The one who serves me undeviatingly transcends the modes of nature and comes to the level of Brahman. Boy, I got to review these every day. Anyway, it's 427 if anyone wants to look up 427. Yeah, at 428. So, so then it says it transcends and comes to the level of Brahman, transcendental. So that in that case, bhakti produces transcendence. You transcend. But in this one, it says Brahma Bhuta comes first, then you attain bhakti, right? Brahma Bhuta prasanna shoti nikanti samak sarveshi bhutashi mad bhakti labate param. But in the other one says, by unflinching service to me, one attains the level of Brahman. So I think what I had, one of the clues is that one describes bhakti and one describes bhakti yoga. Bhakti yoga is meant to bring us to the point of unceasing bhakti, of constant bhakti. In the spiritual world, the devotees are not practicing bhakti yoga. They've already at the point of pure love for Krishna. They don't have to practice some sadhana to get to there. They're already there. But in our state, we do have to practice to come to that point of no shochati na kankshati. That's what we're talking about here. Not lamenting when you lose things, not becoming jubilant when you get something material. Staying equipoised in both of them, realizing that this is a force of time, it's the force of my karma, but what really I should strive for is that pure devotional service to Krishna, which cannot be attained by any amount of good karma. It can only be attained by serving the Guru and Sadhu and Shastra and following the Bhakti Marga as outlined by Krishna and by in the Bhagavatam. So this is as properly quotes it, Ashochan Vashochastram. He's the same, he quotes the whole verse here, because you're lamenting for what is not lamentable. And you're jubilating, that's also a word, to jubilate. You're jubilating for what is not worthy of jubilation. So this point of equipoise is essential to come to. And then in any situation, and this is also Queen Kunti saying that, is that you can be enthusiastic about devotional service, whether it's a very favorable situation or you happen to be in a very difficult material situation. You don't lose your faith. You understand, this is tattenu kampam susamikshamano mam chiyova bicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatitatam brahmabhuya kalpade. That's what I'm looking for. Oh, thank God I remembered. Not completely senile yet. So that's the mam chiyova vyabhichari bhakti. It means undeviating bhakti, steady bhakti. Bhakti yogena sevate, service in bhakti yoga. Sagunan samatita, one transcends the modes of nature. And then goes back to Godhead? No, comes to the point of Brahman. So, but this one says, when it comes to the point of Brahman and gets bhakti, Brahma bhuta prasanatma nashotati nakanti samak sarveshu buddheshu mad bhaktim labite paran. So one is talking about bhakti, and the other is talking about bhakti yoga. That's the idea. Mamshi bhakti yoga na sevate. Okay. So any questions or comments on these points that I made, either locally or remotely? Internationally? I don't know.
I thought it was interesting that
Pashandi?
Yeah.
Are you talking about the atheists, offenders?
Yeah, but then is it the same word there that's translated differently?
In the verse itself?
Yeah.
Okay, let's look here. No, pashyanti, seeing. Pashyanti, to see. Yeah. Observe. Yeah, it's a different word. Pashandi as a definition is what? Yastu narayam devam brahma rudadi daivatai samatvenaina pashyanti. Pashyanti is there. Samatvenaina pashyanti sapashandi bhavedrivam. Those who equate or who see Shiva and Brahma on the same level as Narayan, they're by definition pashandis, they're atheists. They don't understand the hierarchy, proper hierarchy.
Now what was that verse you were looking for in chapter 4?
No, it's 14. It's at the end of 14, I'm sorry.
Chapter 14?
Yes, 14.
Oh.
Yeah, the three modes. That one I got. Mam chiyova bicharena bhakti yogena sevate. Sometimes it takes a little while for the brain to work. If you I should really take up that recommendation of Vaisheshika, chapter a day. If you chant a chapter a day, then they'll always be there at your, I know that verse. Mam chiyova bicharena. Okay, so it's only 8:25, but I can't read ahead because Dharma Setu already has his verses 9 through 25 that he's preparing, and I want to step on his. So let's see. Just again to kind of contemplate the wonderful depth of the Srimad Bhagavatam. That this Bali Maharaj, as you know, he's the grandson of Prahlad, right? He's a grandson, and he's actually a devotee, but he's the head of the demons. He's the one who, because it's in that family, the family of the hereditary from Hiranyakashipu. But Bali, like all of the descendants of Prahlad, they're blessed. Now Banasura wasn't nearly blessed as much as Bali. He was the one who had 1,000 arms, you know, and his daughter, Usha, was it? No, I forget the daughter. She dreamt of Aniruddha, and her girlfriends saw her that she was excited, and they said, "Who is that?" She said, "I don't know." And so she had a friend who was an artist, Chitralekha. So you just describe him to me. I'll make drawings, and when you see the one you dreamed about, let me know. You know, because she said, "Oh, this is my eternal husband," you know. And so she did, and then when Chitra, okay, this is the one. Then she had this mystic power. She went to Dwarka, kidnapped Aniruddha, and brought him back. You know, Aniruddha was still asleep, apparently, and he delivered him there to the inner chambers of the palace of Banasura. So he was very, you know, and the guards, you know, finally noticed that Usha, that the girl had some affair going on, and so they told Banasura, and he was very upset, and then so he arrested Aniruddha, and the Yadus came. Krishna came there, you know, to save him. So there was a big battle, and this Banasura, he was a great devotee of Lord Shiva. So he had been, you know, Shiva likes to dance. He's got this, you know, Tandava Nritya, so maybe he practiced it before the Tandava Nritya, because that's the end of the world, right? So anyway, so he gave him these 1,000 arms, and he was playing 500 Madanga drums perfectly. You know, you can imagine, it's quite a sound. So Shiva was very pleased with that. But then Banasura said, "I have all these arms, and there's no one who can fight with me, you know." So sometimes I get frustrated and I just start beating up mountains and pulverizing mountains, you know. Isn't there anyone who can fight? So Shiva was upset with his disciple there, and he said, "You're going to get someone who, you know, will fight, you know, who can fight with you. Don't worry." And so Banasura was very jubilant about that. So what happened is that Krishna came with his armies, you know, and he ended up, Shiva was very solicitous of Banasura, because he was a faithful devotee. He'd helped him dance. So he had this dwar, this weapon called the Shiva dwar, which is a heat weapon, you know, very powerful. So Krishna, he's had a Vishnu dwar, cold weapon. So Prabhupada mentions in the Krishna book is that when it gets too hot, you know, somehow you can survive. You know, in India it gets too hot. But if it gets too cold, then everything collapses, if everything freezes, you know. So the Vishnu jar won the battle, and the Shiva jar offered his prayers, and Shiva also offered prayers. But so Banasura was defeated, so Krishna didn't kill him, because he's not going to kill any descendants of Prahlad. But he did chop off 996 arms. So he had only 4 arms left. But he said, "Okay, here's my daughter, please go into marriage. God be with you," you know. So he stopped opposing the marriage. That's how, or Aniruddha got married. So Bali is also, but he's different, you know, he's not a really confirmed demon. You know, when Vamanadev comes, and what's interesting also about Shukracharya, because he's the spiritual master of Bali, and apparently he had told him, because Bali says, "Oh, you told me that, you know, everything should be offered to Vishnu, but now you're telling me, no, don't offer him anything, because he'll take everything away. So I reject you." He rejected Shukracharya, and he offered Vamanadev anything he wanted, and Vamana said, "I just want 3 steps of land," and he was diminutive. Even his 3 steps were like nothing, you know. And so Bali said, "Oh, that's nothing. Your soul is so small." Speaking of the soul, the foot soul, you know. "Don't you want something else?" No. If a Brahmin is not satisfied with minimal, then, you know, he's not really a Brahmin. So okay, take the 3 steps. So Shukracharya had warned him, but he didn't listen. So the first step, he covered the whole world. You know, Vamanadev expanded. Next step, he covered the whole universe, and he poked a hole in it with his big toe, and in came some of the causal ocean, washed the dust from whatever dust was from his foot, and that became the Ganges. It was sanctified then, and that came down, down, down. There's a chapter in the fifth canto describing the descent of the Ganges, how the demigods were, in their airplanes, they were carrying, thousands of them were carrying some of the Ganges till they came down to the earth. And so, but then that's only 2 steps. So Vamanadev, who's grown pretty big now, he says, "Oh, where am I going to put my 3rd step?" So Bali said, "Put it on my head." He surrendered everything, and he became famous there for being the exemplar for Atmanivedanam, giving up everything. He had the whole universe, but he gave it all up for Vamanadev. So Vamanadev gave him a planet, Rasatala, I think down one of the lower planets, but he also agreed to be his doorman. So he said, Vamanadev is eternally there, watching, being the associate there of Bali in that lower planet. So that's going to come later, obviously. Now Bali is in the role of as the king of the demons. He's conquered Indra. They become conquered. And then Aditi, she prays for an incarnation that will bear her children. She's the mother of all the demigods. They'll get back their homes. And so she gets Vamanadev. It's very diminutive, but I don't like to say he's a dwarf. Because if you look up dwarf in the English dictionary, it's someone who is, hasn't grown properly and is diminutive because of disease. That's not Vamana. He's just miniature, So anyway, but dwarf can be an adjective which simply means like a midget. So that's coming in I think next chapter we're going to see about that. And we come to 8:30. If there are no more questions or objections.
Srila Prabhupada said about suffering, he said, the heat is austerity, but the cold is misery.
That's an interesting thing. Yeah. So anyway, just to cap it off, this is also one of my favorite verses I often quote from the 11th canto. I think Krishna speaking this to Uddhava. It could be one of the 9 Yogendras. It says, Labdva sudurlamabidam bahusambhavante manushim artadam anityamapiya dhira turnam yateta napateda namityavat nikshayasaya vishaya kalusarva taksyat. Very important verse, which is in the same theme as what Narada said to Vyasadeva. I quoted that verse. But here it's more explicit. He says, Labdva, O human being, you have attained, very difficult to attain, human form of life after many, many births. Labdva sudurlabham. It's not just durlabham, it's sudurlabham. 8,400,000 species, and that's just the species. What about the actual population? There are trillions and trillions of ants and trillions of blades of grass, and each one of them is a soul on its way up, slowly, 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 to the human form. So here we are, human beings. There's only 8 billion of us or so they count on the Earth planet, so it's very rare. And what's special about it? Bahusamba, many births it takes to come up now. Well, we're all human beings. Manusham, same word, manu, human being. Artadam, this form alone can give you the final purpose of life. The lower animals and the insects, they can't understand anything. Very, very rudimentary consciousness for the most part. If they have a dog sitting here who just wondering, when is prasadam? That's all he wants to know. So anyway, Manusham, that comes to the point where we want to know that too. Artadam, but it's a nityam. It's also temporary. Life is passing. With the rising, setting of the sun, everyone's life is being taken away. A nityam, so one has to be dhira, one has to be thoughtful, you see. And then, and after you're thoughtful and you get to the right conclusion, then here's what you do. Turnam, without wasting your time, immediately. Because the material energy is always changing. Turnam yateta, the same word as in the first verse here, strive. Napateta numrityavat, as long as they haven't died yet, death is, anumritya means death is following you behind. It's always possible at any moment. So there's an urgency to it. All right, what do I strive for? Nikshayasaya, the ultimate good. Not just shreyas, but nikshayasa, the ultimate good, which is to give up this material body and to attain our spiritual body, to understand what our real swarup is. Lord Chaitanya told us in no uncertain words, Jiva Sodapoi, Krishna Nityadas. We're eternal servants of Krishna. But in what form and what is my particular service? That we can only learn by the process of bhakti. So Nikshay Vishay, because after all, then he ends with this in the sloka. Vishayakala sarvatakshyat. You've already experienced all these varieties of material sense pleasure. We've had it so long. So what has it gotten us? Another material body, birth, old age, disease, and death, and the threefold miseries. So therefore, the wise don't strive for that. They strive for Krishna, the bliss of Krishna consciousness. This is also, and I'll end with this. This is Rishabdev's teachings, famous first teaching to his sons. Same mood. It says, Nayam deho dehabhajangaloke krishtan kamanadate vidbhujanghe. He's not mincing any words here. Tapo divyam puttakayena sattvam shuddye jasmad brahmasaukyam tvanantam. So here are the two kinds of pleasure. The sense pleasure and then the material, spiritual pleasure. So he's talking about that. In the human form of life, now he's speaking to his 100 sons, because he's going to take sannyas. Nayam deho dehabhaj, one who has achieved a human form of life. Nirloka, nirla is short for nara loke. Kashtan kaman, you should not strive very hard, very painful, kashtan kaman, for the object of the senses. Arhate vidbhujange, which is available to the stool-eating hogs. Don't be like that. What's the alternative? Tapo divyam, austerity, not just any austerity, because everyone performs austerity to try to get ahead in life. No, divine austerity, transcendental austerity, as recommended in the Shastra. Which will, what's the result of that? Puttaka, oh sons, puttaka yena sattvam shuddhyed. Your existence will become purified. Well, what's the advantage of that? Yasmad brahmasaukyam tvanantam. You'll come to the point of being able to enjoy unending bliss. Material happiness is always flickering. It comes and it goes. We know that from experience. But this is brahmasaukyam, Brahman happiness, the spiritual happiness, which is anantam. Endless in both ways. It doesn't end and it keeps expanding. You cannot find that on the material plane. So that's the choice. But it means that we have to accept certain austerity. We have to control the lower self by the higher self, as Krishna says in the end of the third chapter, I'm sorry. So it all fits together. And if there's no more discussion, I'll end here. Thank you for your attention. We have class number 3 in a row tonight, if you're willing. Okay, Chris, but you need to do the mic. We need to find him the mic. Give him the mic. Ramapati, you got one right in front of you. In front of you, on the harmonium. Okay. Now, you know how to turn it on, right? Hold until the light goes on. Okay, go ahead, Prabhu.
Ready. Could you elaborate more on what they mean by the word suffer?
Suffer?
Yeah, and why I ask is because there's undergoing pain and discomfort and these austerities that they talk about, like, okay, you do yoga no matter what, and one day you might wake up and you're like, whoa, I feel like a block of ice and all the rust and everything, but you still do yoga, and then after an hour or two, you're good. You feel great, but you really didn't want to do it in the beginning. So you could say, okay, that's suffering, because it was really challenging, and I drudged myself to do it. Maybe it made me feel queasy, or made me feel whatever, unpleasant.
Well, you seem to be mixing two things, because let me just elaborate, because the suffering usually refers to things that you don't want. It's not voluntary, it's forced upon you. But you're talking about austerity. Austerity is voluntary suffering, or I'm taking a pain, for a higher result. Now that doesn't necessarily mean it's transcendental, because you want to become a good athlete, like an Olympic champion, you got to perform a lot of austerity. You got to, do all these things. But the goal is there, the gold medal, or some honor. That's the idea. But then there's sufferings that you just come automatically just by being a human being. Those are the birth, old age, disease, and death. They're sufferings, you can't avoid them, and the threefold miseries, which is another way of the miseries caused by our own body and mind, which is sometimes unbearable. You have PTSD, you have some trauma, it could be like that. Or you're born with some disease, and it's suffering even from childhood. They overlap. If the sufferings from other living beings, they can be other human beings, or as Prabhupada says, bite bugs, mosquitoes. That's another form. And then there's a very prominent lately from the higher powers, from the demigods. It's called Adidaivik. Earthquakes, tornadoes, the fires in LA, you know. But we know that these are anthropogenic. The heating and all these floods. It's ultimately by those who are intelligent. You can trace it back to global warming, which is caused by human beings. So ultimately, is that adiatmic? I mean, is adibautic or is it adidaivik? But anyway, those are the three general things, and they're always threatening, or we're suffering one or more of those. So that's material life, because we're stuck in the body. So we want to try to get relief, and we have some sense gratification. And while that's happening, we can forget that we're actually basically suffering. So but that's fools. That's foolish, because ultimately you die and take another birth, and you're still stuck in a body. Maybe a lower body. It may not be a human body anymore. But you're going to suffer these things anyway. So human life is meant for something else because of the higher intelligence. Voluntarily undergoing suffering in the form of certain austerities, such as we have our famous austerities: no illicit sex, no gambling, no meat eating, and no intoxication. So those are difficult if you're really habituated to those things. But eventually you get to the point where that's just a given. You know, it's not something you have to clench your teeth in every day. You know, you lose the taste. That's the thing. You get the higher taste of Krishna consciousness, and you can give up the intoxication. Certainly, meat eating is the first one to go, and that's a foundation for practicing bhakti yoga. Without accepting that, then you really can't go very far. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, but suffering, you know, in one sense, suffering for Krishna becomes kind of a source of pleasure. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, I think, sung like that when I undergo, because you know, Prabhupada came to America. I mean, you can look at, wow, God, you know, he's sort of suffering. He just a trip on the boat. It wasn't a comfortable boat. It was a cargo ship, you know, and he was elderly. His health wasn't so great. He had nausea. He had 2 heart attacks. Was he suffering? Yeah, he was suffering. But that was part of his ecstasy, because he was doing it for the spiritual master, he's doing it for Lord Chaitanya, he's doing it for Krishna, and he's doing it for us, to give us a chance to take up bhakti, to end all suffering.
Well, that actually goes perfectly into where I wanted to ask the question.
Go ahead.
So a lot of the times, where I was saying discomfort is this: you do things that just kind of rattle you a little bit, but you're not going to die. Nobody's going to like break your leg or anything. Where do they draw the line between that and masochistic suffering? And I ask because for a lot of the religious life, the last 2,000 years in the religious church, they worship Jesus on the cross, and there's been a lot of violent suffering, which I would argue is not what Krishna, or is not what the body or anybody is actually looking for, because it's not loving. It's painful.
No,
it hurts.
No, you're not looking for it.
So what is that suffering that they're really talking about there?
You're talking about in the Bible, and like Jesus on the cross?
No, here.
Oh, here?
Here. Well, because of the word suffering has been taken and pulled into a direction of pain.
Yeah.
By other religious forces. So that's something that we have to contend with.
Well, the thing is, we're not taking pleasure from the suffering. But there's a certain kind of spiritual satisfaction to undergo. Let's just call them difficulties for now. For the pleasure of Guru and Krishna. You say you undergo some. Just like I like to give the example of my first cold shower at 3 a.m. when I first joined. I mean, that's the thing. It's like you don't just luxuriate in a hot shower. That's not what's happening. You're trying to clean in order to go to Mangalarti, so it's a short shower, But it's supposed to be cold, and so that was my first. I had slept over, and that was what everyone was doing, and so there was a line going into the bathroom, and I was in the shower. So I had to deal with that. the anticipation of what it was going to be. I mean, it's not like that's greatest suffering, but it's something that's you're sacrificing. So I went in there, and I turned on. I don't think there was any hot water. It was March in Brooklyn. It can be quite cold. It was barely spring. And it was cold. But of course, I kind of had a little cheat program. I don't know if you heard one of the classes, because I had been practicing Hatha Yoga, and that includes certain pranayama, and they have what is called the heating breath. You can try it. If you just breathe in and out real fast, it kind of heats the body up real fast. And that diminished the impact of the cold. So that's a minor thing, And after a while, if you get habituated to it, that's not really an austerity. It's not something that's giving you mental trouble. You just go and do it. And the 4 regs are more of an austerity for most devotees. Joining in the 60s in America, if you're raised in India in a Gurukul, that's one thing. So, but anyway, if you're doing Krishna consciousness properly, you're chanting nicely, you're paying attention, you're doing all the things that you do, then the taste of Krishna consciousness makes it possible to do these other things. And they become a source of joy for you. The fact that, and the thing about it is this getting the higher taste. So many devotees joined and they had been into drugs. I had never been heavily into drugs, thank God, but I did smoke marijuana and everything. This is the 60s, after all. But after a short time in Krishna consciousness, the kirtans and the deities and the prasadam and the devotees and the books and all this, I had lost the taste for it. It wasn't like I had to really grit my teeth and said, oh boy, I can't smoke, I can't drink, no. It's nothing like that. And then, of course, the big one is the sex drive, and that there's a provision for marriage, that can be also going on, but then, the children, and there's a big responsibility. But that was also possible to do, and without too much pain. And I've been brahmachari now for 50 years, and that's not one of my problems. At this age, of course, 77. But the point is that by accepting these austerities in Krishna consciousness, you can feel the mercy of Krishna. You can feel, oh, okay, I'm going out on book distribution, I'm getting insulted, this and that. But when you sell a book and you meet somebody and even they come to the temple, it's you're just feeling the blessings of the Lord Krishna and Lord Chaitanya and Srila Prabhupada. You're making the sacrifice, you're undergoing the austerity, and you're, for the greatest reason it can be, to give Krishna consciousness to somebody who doesn't have it, so that they can be saved from millions of births and suffering. When you actually understand the philosophy, it's the best welfare work that can possibly be. So, there's one verse, and I'll end on here because it's apropos to your question. Queen Kunti's prayers. This is in chapter 8 of the first canto, the very early on. The first set of systematic prayers in the whole Bhagavatam, actually. And one of her prayers, near the end of her prayers, she says, because you have to know the background, she's the mother of the Pandavas, and she was under their protection. So even though the Kurus are after them, they exile them, they try to burn them alive, and they're out to try to get the kingdom. And the mother she's under their care. So, but all of the Pandavas, and especially Kunti, she was that ultimately were under Krishna's protection. And so they had so many experiences where he saved them. He sent Vidura to warn them about the house of lac so they could get out. They built a tunnel and escaped. So she says there in these prayers, and this is the last time she's going to see Krishna. This is the war is over. They're now installed as the kings. Her wonderful children, especially Yudhishthira. So Krishna is saying goodbye. He's going to go back to Dwarka. He's in Hastinapur. So she says near the end of her prayers, Vipadak santa takshashwad tatta tatta jagadguru bhavatu darshanam yaksa rapuna bhavadarshanam. So let those miseries, let those dangers come again and again, because when the danger comes, we see you. You appear directly, or you obviously arrange things so that we're saved. So we can see you, we have the experience of you. Tattva Tattva, the old master of the universe. Bhavatu darshanang yaksad, and by seeing you, Apunar Bhava darshanam, we won't have to see birth and death again. In other words, she's saying that we're going back to God, and we're going to join you in the spiritual world. But that, I never really could pray that way. I can chant a verse, but to really pray for dangers to come again and again. But those who are on the front line of preaching, they know that when there's a difficulty and you're very intensely Krishna conscious and praying for a solution, and something happens unexpected and it's solved, that's a very ecstatic experience, and you really feel Krishna's protection in your spiritual life. So that's the advanced platform, to pray for the dangers, so that you intensely pray for Krishna's protection and you'll feel His presence. But that may be beyond the scope of your question. Maybe we can discuss it afterward, because I think we should adjourn now. I went way over time. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol.